What if I told you that sitting on a treasure chest worth crores of rupees can actually make you poor? That having the very resources that fuel a nation's growth can leave your own people in poverty? This sounds like a paradox, a riddle. But for the Indian states of Odisha, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Bihar, this is a harsh reality they have lived for over 40 years. Welcome to the heart of India's mineral belt. This region is without exaggeration the engine room of Indian economy. Odisha alone produces almost 45% of India's minerals by value. Jharkhand sits on the top 40% of the country's mineral reserves and is the only source of coking coal, which is essential for making steel. Chhattisgarh is a powerhouse of coal and iron ore. So, logically, these states should be one of India's wealthiest states, and their cities should be gleaming with skyscrapers and industries. But the reality is the complete opposite. In the National Multidimensional Poverty Index, Bihar and Jharkhand are the two poorest states in India, and Chhattisgarh and Odisha are not far behind. On the Human Development Index, which measures health, education, and income, all of these states are almost at the bottom. This is the paradox of plenty, worldwide known as the resource curse. This is a story of how a blessing from the earth can actually become an economic and a social curse. So, how did this happen? How did India's treasure chest, India's mineral resources, become a trap? The answer is not in the ground, it lies in history and current politics. So, earlier there was the freight equalization policy. The name sounds technical, but what it did was devastatingly simple. Here is the simple economic logic it destroyed. Normally, you set up a factory like a steel factory right next to the mines from where you actually extract iron or coal. Why? To save a huge amount of money for transportation. This natural advantage should have made Eastern India a very rich and a powerful industrial hub, just like US or the European countries. But this policy erased that advantage. The central government decided to subsidize the cost of transportation of minerals. This meant that if there was, let's say, 1 ton of iron ore that was to be exported from a mine in Jharkhand to a nearby factory, and if you had to transport that same ton of coal from, let's say, Jharkhand to a nearby or a very far off state, let's say Maharashtra or Gujarat, the transportation cost in both the scenarios will be the exact same. So the damage was immediate and permanent. With transport costs gone, companies no longer needed to build factories near the mines. Instead, they looked for their own advantage. They chose to set up factories near cities that are near the coast so that they can be exported to other places. This heavily favored the coastal states of the west and the south. So, for 41 years, this policy basically paid industries to move away from the mineral reserves. It was a government-sponsored hollowing out. The east was reduced to just being a quarry or a mineral reserve, while the rest of India actually built industries to the west and the south. The second national blow was the nationalization of coal mines. The government took over all private coal mines to create one giant state owned monopoly, that is, the Coal India Limited. The stated goal was to stop corruption and to improve worker safety and properly develop India's energy sector. However, it did the complete opposite. It created a slow, inefficient, and controlling government system. But its worst and most lasting result was the creation of the coal mafia. Here is a step by step mechanism of how it was built. So, the government under Indira Gandhi's rule took all private coal mines and created one giant monopoly, as I told you, the Coal India Limited. The local musclemen and the labor contractors who earlier worked for these private owners, they did not disappear. They were still there and they worked for the Coal India Limited company. They violently seized control of the new powerful workers' unions, and by controlling these unions, they took control of everything: who got the jobs, who got transport contracts, and who got loading contracts. So eventually, These people, these muscle men, they gathered a lot of wealth from these contracts and they went on to have their own political career and get elected as MPs and MLAs. So, what was the result? Organized crime plus union power plus political office. This led to the rise of the Mafia Raj. In 2015, a law created the District Mineral Foundation (DMF). The idea was very good. A portion of all mineral profits will go to a special fund, and the money from this special fund will only be used for health, education, and welfare for the people who were affected because of the mining activities. Instead, this did a complete opposite thing. This money turned into a personal ATM for politicians and officials. In Odisha, this money is taken from villages from where it belongs and it is spent on show city projects. For example, the DMF fund was used to build an international hockey stadium in Rourkela and to buy luxury police cars and fund airport power supplies. So this money is not for the mining affected villages. This is for the cities which are already developed and the affected people in the villages are still breathing toxic dust and drinking polluted water. Bihar was formed in 2000 after splitting with Jharkhand, but it has a political DNA of its past from 15 years of rule by a local party that is infamously known as the Jungle Raj. While the party rose to power promising social justice for lower class, it led to a total collapse of that state. Kidnapping for ransom became a very common practice and all the development stopped. The engine for this entire system was open corruption. The best example is the 940 crore rupees fodder scam. This scam created the blueprint for how to steal from the state's treasury using thousands of fake bills that didn't even exist. It's a very famous case. You can search it up later. I'll have to make a separate video if I go on talking about this. But in short, this fodder scam, this corruption became deeply personal and symbolic. Now, let me give you another scenario. During the wedding of the party chief's daughter, for example, there were widespread reports of party members allegedly lifting dozens of brand new luxury cars from showrooms all across Patna to ferry VIP guests. Next, the IRCTC scam. The party allegedly rigged hotel contracts in return for valuable plots of land that were again meant for the party chief's family members. This is the legacy Bihar still suffers from. Also, environmental damage holds back development in these mineral rich regions. The coal fields of Jharia in Jharkhand have been on fire for many years. Unsafe mining has led to the sinking of land, toxic pollution, and has forced so many people to move away, leaving them in misery and poverty. This is a long term cost. The environmental cost is very terrifying. Open cast mining literally scrapes away the earth, destroying forests and good topsoil. Mineral dust full of heavy metals settles on the nearby farms and it poisons the soil and the nearby crop yields. So, the rivers like the Damodar and Subarnarekha in Jharkhand have become toxic sewers, and their water is very unfit either for drinking and for farming. And this does not end here. The 2024 Odisha CAG report, that's the government's official auditor, it uncovered a massive scam. They estimated a revenue loss to the public of rupees over 22,392 crore. Now, here is a political bombshell. An investigation looked into these very companies that the CAG had exposed, and where was the money going? Obviously, it went through electoral bonds. So, via electoral bonds, these companies donated almost 601 crore rupees to the political parties. And who got the cash? The party ruling Odisha at that time got rupees 453 crore. But the main opposition party, which is the current ruling party in Odisha right now, wasn't far behind. They received rupees 145 crore from the exact same companies. So finally, this is how the system is enforced on the ground. In the coal belt of Jharkhand, the mafia Raj, born from nationalization, now runs a parallel government. Here is how the mafia Raj steals money today. The first method is the Gunda Raj tax, extorting the legal economy. This is the parallel tax system. Imagine a company XYZ, it buys 1000 tons of coal in a government auction from Coal India Limited, and their trucks arrive at the mine to pick up the coal that they paid for. But the mafia controlled union, it refuses to load the coal. The mafia's men blockade the trucks. Those trucks are not allowed to leave until that XYZ company pays an illegal off books gunda tax, that is an extortion fee, directly to the local mafia don. This is a non negotiable cost of doing business. Now, all of us know what has led to the downfall of these states. But how do we fix this? Here are some genuinely radical ideas to help India's mineral rich regions prosper, and all of them are explained in simple terms. The mine and make rule. This rule will stop companies from directly mining from a specific region and disappearing. To get a mining license, a company should also promise to build a factory like a steel mill or a power plant right near the mine. This forces them to build up the local area with better jobs and more tax money instead of just shipping away with the raw materials. The security deposit for earth. This rule makes companies pay for their own cleanup upfront. Before a company can dig, it must pay the full estimated cost of fixing the land into a locked government account. The company only gets this deposit back after it has finished mining and an independent expert confirms that the land and water are fully restored and are safe to use. If the company leaves a mess, the government it keeps the money and uses it to hire someone else to do the cleanup. The Yogi Adityanath model. Just like Bihar is today, Bihar is in a pretty bad state today. Just like that, Uttar Pradesh also suffered from similar issues: Gunda Raj, dirty politics, and no industrial progress. With the new government in UP, much of the Gunda Raj is now in control. New infrastructure projects have been announced, and private companies have been encouraged. We can see this in places like the new Zevar airport and the development of so many cities like Varanasi and Ayodhya. On the same lines, we can also develop cities like Patna, Gaya, and other cities in Bihar. Launch a human development mission for health and education. So, the states that I told you, these states are at the bottom of the Human Development Index, and the data that is shown, it does not show a very small gap, it shows a massive one. The problem needs an emergency level mission and not just small budget increases here and there. Create jobs through industrialization. So, the lack of good jobs is why so many people from these poor states are forced to migrate to other parts of India. We can fix this via two steps. First is mandatory local hiring. Pass a state law requiring at least 50% of all skilled and 90% of all unskilled jobs in any mining project must go to people who live in that particular region. Also, we need more skilling centers. Require the mining company to build and fund a local training institute before it even starts digging to make sure there is a steady supply of locally skilled workers. And lastly, we need to tackle the Naxalite problem with the land rights. The Naxalites or the Maoists are the violent insurgents in India's mineral belt. They recruit from the poor tribal or from the Adivasi communities by exploiting the resource first. They point to pollution, corruption, and displacement as a proof that the government is actually their own enemy. They claim to be protectors of the water, forest, and land in these regions while they extort the same mining industry they claim to fight. So, just using the military will not solve this problem. The permanent solution is to deliver justice. This means putting the forest rights of 2006 into action on a war footing speed. This law gives legal land titles to tribal communities. This one act turns them from encroachers into legal owners with the power to negotiate. This would instantly destroy the core Naxalite narrative and stop their main source of recruitment. So, this is it for today, friends. I hope you liked my analysis, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment box below. Thank you.